All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and also happy Valentine's Day. This is the Automation with Scripting Basics workshop with myself, Felipe Aceves, treasurer.
And me, Alessandra Gonzalez. You can call me Ally, Swift's graphic designer.
All right. And we are moving. Once again, I think today is it today? To become a paid member, or at least for shirts. But being a paid member, has its benefits as well as being a general member. But being a paid member gives you, t-shirts, stickers, webcams, raffles, and giveaways for those that are seniors and are planning to graduate this semester. You get a Swift Soul and other features like the mentorship that'll happen next semester for those that are juniors and still continuing. Very great program. It's very helpful. And then certification reimbursement, partial certification reimbursements. We don't unfortunately have a lot of funds to cover all certifications, but we can cover at least a portion of your certification. And then eligibility for Eboard positions and plenty more. That is the link to it, and it's 20 for this spring semester.
And I would like to clarify that for the t-shirts, I know we also just dropped in chat that today's the last day for paid member t-shirts. Today is not the last day to get a paid member t-shirt. Today's just the last day to make sure that there's one in your size, because we're going to be placing the order soon.
Yeah. All right. So obviously today's 14th. Automation with Bash scripting and also Valentine's. See the little heart, very cute. And then Friday will be hands-on Friday workshop from 6 to 8. Just a heads up, I know we're kind of jumping the gun, but next week's Tuesday the 21st, we do have a alumni panel. I believe Matthew Spragle, if you guys ever had him, he's not teaching anymore, but he did teach for a couple of semesters. Very great professor. Love him. He showed me like lots of good information to look for like jobs and stuff. Also, I think Silas and other alumni that are going to be here in person. So great opportunity to kind of talk with them, ask them anything what they do, and network.
Yeah, definitely look forward to that. Our alumni network is pretty extensive, and a lot of the people that we have visiting are very smart people, and definitely someone that's good to make connections with. All right. So this is what we're going to be covering today. Just going to be an intro to scripting and basics of programming. So what even is scripting, and is Bash or Python better? So can anyone tell me what scripting is, or have an idea of what scripting is? Anyone? Sam. Yeah. So Sam said it's basically performing an automated task with an executable. That's precisely right. Scripting is not writing a whole application in your computer. That is not what scripting is. Scripting is finding a task that you need automated and automating it. Yeah. So Bash. Bash is the born again shell. That's what it stands for. But it is the command line interpreter that is by default installed into most of the Linux flavors. So let's say I want to go through and change all of my users' passwords via a text file. If it's in plain text code, Bash is my best option. But let's say I want to do the same thing and add a bunch of parameters, like adding them to certain user groups, or something weird like changing the passwords to users who only have a 1 in their name, stuff like that. Python is the best option for that. Bash does not have the functionality to handle more complex tasks, while Python does. So this is when Python comes in handy. And Python's just a standalone programming language, and it can be geared towards many different things. Sorry. So before we continue, we're going to go over smart quotes and dumb quotes. So smart quotes are double prime quotes. Dumb quotes are not double prime quotes. The only reason this matters is if you are writing your code on a Word document or something and you want to transfer it to something else. When you're doing that, an application will try to translate the quotes. And if you transfer it back, your code might look different, because the only quotes that Bash and like other stuff recognizes is the double prime quotes. So when you're trying to transfer it or transfer it back, you're probably going to get some errors in your code unless it's a double prime quote. And we'll show you on the next one what a double prime quote is. So those are dumb quotes right there, the ones with the little straight lines. You do not want those in your code. Those are the double prime quotes right there with the little tiny bulbs at the end. Those are the ones that are okay to write when, because they will not be affected when you're transferring from like language to language. Okay. Intro to variables. Okay. So a variable is just something that stores something. It's kind of an interchangeable value depending on what you're using it for. So think like math. It's literally just something that holds something else. In programming, it can be stuff like integers, strings, Boolean types. But in Python and Bash, thankfully, you do not have to declare the type when you are initializing that variable. And they are case sensitive in both Python and Bash. So for example, next slide. So example, we're initializing right there, x equals 14. So we just described the value 14 to x. That's an integer. We don't need to say it's an integer because it knows it's an integer. In other programming languages, you might need to, but Python you don't, which is so helpful in my opinion. You can also override the data in Python, which means if you initialize x as 14, but then in a subsequent line you write that x is, like, let's say here, Valentine's, it'll change that data completely. It'll change the type and it'll change what it holds. So it goes from being 14 to Valentine's. We're also going to cover legal names versus illegal names. So as we can see here, there's a bunch of names up there and they all look kind of the same. But the legal ones is like Valentine's Day, where they're all together, or Valentine's Day, where they're separated by an underscore. Illegal ones would be ones that have a number in the beginning or a space in between, because it won't recognize it as a variable. Okay, variables in Bash. Like in Python, you also don't need to declare a type, which is super useful. The syntax that you would use to declare a variable in Bash would be that you need the little $, a name, equals, and then whatever value it is. You cannot have any spaces in Bash. That is one of the things that you do need to remember, is that you cannot have any spaces when you're initializing variables in Bash. It is also case sensitive. So if you were to declare a variable and it's like Valentine's Day with the D capitalized, and then you did another one with the D not capitalized, they would be two separate variables. They would not be the same. Like in Python, you can also override the data. So again, Valentine's Day equals 14. In the button beneath it, we have Valentine's Day equals Cupid's birthday. Now Valentine's Day holds Cupid's birthday. It does not hold 14. We're overriding that data. And then in Bash, you can use echo to check what we have stored. So these are the two ways you can check what the value is actually, what the variable is actually holding. So those would be the syntax right there. Oh, do you want to move the mouse a little bit? Oh, it's on this one. I'm a little dense. Okay. Yeah, so there we have $echo $Valentine's Day, or $echo quotes $Valentine's Day end quote. Okay. We're also going to go through our naming cases. As you might have noticed, our slide chapters were named a little funky. They had the capitalization a little funky. Variable naming cases are kind of up to you, like whatever you want to use, you can use. But we have camel case, where all words are capitalized except for the first word. It's Valentine's Day. That's a pretty common one. I use that in most of my programming classes. Then we have snake case, where words are separated by underscores, like it shows right there. Or Pascal case, where it's just every word starts with a capital letter. And then again, you can use whichever one you prefer. It really doesn't matter. Most people just want to pick one and kind of keep it throughout your code. That way it can maintain its readability. Okay. We also have our variable types. Okay. Right. There. Okay. So up here, we have a little list of like the types of variables and their Python assignments and Bash assignments. So we do have, it says characters up there, but that is characters and strings. A character is just a number, letter, symbol, kind of how you're used to thinking about it. But a string is a group of characters. They are different, and it's important to know the difference. Overall, when you're initializing it, it doesn't really matter, but it's just something that's good for you to know. We also have, for those of you who might not know, who might be completely new to programming, Boolean. Boolean is just a fancy way of saying true and false. In Python, you have to have the T and the F capitalized because they're already like operators in Python. So for it to recognize as a Boolean variable, you have to have the T and F capitalized. For Bash, you can either initialize it with 1 and 0, with 1 being true and 0 being false, or you can use true and false. It does not matter in Bash if it's capitalized or not. But this is just how you would initialize that. So again, at Python, you can have the spaces. It's case sensitive. It doesn't really matter. For Bash, bless you. For Bash, you do not, you cannot have any spaces, and that would be the syntax for initializing variables. I will make sure to put that picture on the study guide. Don't worry about trying to memorize this picture right now. You guys will be able to refer back to it. I know that that's something where if you just look at it, it's going to be hard to remember. It'll be on our study guide. Don't worry. I think so.
All right. So I'm gonna be going over the conditionals and loops. Before I move forward with the slides, anyone have any comments, questions so far from the content that we've gone through? Also, I wanted to include that the spaces in what's it called, the like Python and Bash. You know, we had a little bit of like, I guess, experience with that. I wouldn't say experience with that, but more like with the Friday workshop, how we were supposed to read a file that had spaces in this file name. And you know, I just wanted to, there's some relation to it. I mean, because like you have to like quote it and stuff. So like if you wanted to read it or happen to accidentally make a file, you know, quote, it's kind of like these little tedious like tasks and stuff that you have to do, kind of like with Camel, Snake, and Pascal. I know it's like kind of repetitive or like tedious, but you know, repetition and practice will, you know, you'll get the hang of it and the gist of it. So with conditions, conditions, you know, are like if else, and we have this example first, like in Python. So if and we use the parentheses, whether, and for equals, we use double equal sign. And if it equals to quote cold, then it would print the wear sweater. But for if else, we're going to do else colon, then print wear tank top. So if it doesn't happen to be a cold weather, we're going to go with the other option, which is wear tank top. And just to kind of also come back with the idea of like attention to detail, we have these like indentations and like spaces. Once you start getting familiar with Python, it's like that's the proper way to like work with the Python language. And you'll know if like you got it correctly because it's gonna return to you an error code, or you probably code something and the output wasn't the one that you were expecting. So don't, be so hard on yourself. Trust me, my time of like Python, especially Java, gosh, it was a pain. Or like my professors, like every line of code that you put, always run it and check it, because if you like write like a long set of code and you just run it and there's like an error, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. It's not going to be fun. But moving forward with Bash, we see some differences. So instead of parentheses, we use like brackets, and we also do use the dollar sign. So it'd be quote dollar sign weather end quote, and instead of two equal signs, we do tag EQ for equals to see if weather equals cold, and then semicolon, then, and then echo wear sweater, or else echo wear tank top. And once again, just wanted to point out the indentations and like the separation of lines. Once again, you'll start to kind of see the template of how to properly code. I want to say this is like the way to do it, but you'll know if you like execute it right by obviously running it. And if it doesn't return, then there's lots of articles or like sources that someone has already done the code that you've already like trying to generate. And it's not shameful to like look and see how they executed that set of code. So don't feel ashamed that you're looking at someone else's code.
Yeah, no, Google is your best friend, guys. Stack Overflow, amazing. It's such the homie when it's helping out. Like, there's no shame in looking things up. We were all beginners at one point. We all had to learn at one point. If you do not understand the way something works, definitely go to Google. Definitely find other people in the community who are trying to do the same problems as you, because someone else has definitely done it and explained it on the internet.
All right, now moving forward with for loops. Loops, for loops are basically it iterates the program over a sequence. And also we're mentioning while loops as well, and we'll go through while loops on the next slides. For loops and Python, we have a set of example here. I put chocolate underscore brand equals Twix, Butterfingers, a set of chocolate brands. And for brands and chocolate, and then we go to the next line and it says for brands and chocolate underscore brand colon print, which will give me the output of what brand of chocolate I pick. And then it says if brand equals Reese's, then it'll break. So basically what it will happen is that I'll run it, and it's going to ask for, well, I didn't properly put it, but I can put like something that'll ask me and put an insert, like an answer. Let's say I put Twix, Butterfinger, Snickers, any kind. If I don't put Reese's, then it's going to keep on going. And if I put Reese's, then it's going to break. And with Bash, very similar, but we can see the differences of, like for, we use the different set of like brackets or parentheses, the curly braces and the dollar signs. For chocolate underscore brand, we do bracket at bracket, and then semicolon do, and then echo, which is the I guess other word for Python is print. So for Bash it'd be echo dollar sign brand, and then if brand equals Reese's, then break. So it's as mentioned before, it's a iterative of code that'll sequence over and over again until it matches the if and then what it was looking for to equal it. So for while loops, and also trying to keep it to the theme of Valentine's. So for while loops, it iterates the code while the condition is true. So kind of like, true, false. For Python, I assigned I into 0, not O. And I put while I is less than or equal to 3, colon, then I equals I plus 1. So what it'll do is it'll start out 0 and then it'll add 1. So eventually it'll be 0, it'll run it again, add 1, plus 1, it'll be 1, and then add another 1 because it won't add till 3 or equal till 3. And once it does, it'll print I less than plus I, which is would be the 3, and then plus u, giving the output, I love you. Next. And then this is also the same set of code, just in Bash. And once again, we can see the differences. I equals 0, while bracket I less than equal to 3, and bracket do spacing, and then with the indentation, I equals I plus 1, done, and then the IX quote with the I less than plus $I, and given the output of 3 plus the quotes view, giving it the echo or the output of I love you. So these are a simple set of codes. Yeah. But we're gonna kind of show you how we're gonna go more in depth on Friday's workshop. But this is kind of like a bit of an example of how, scripting in either Bash or Python can be useful. Bash using a set of like simple, not too complex set of commands. These are commands that you'd use kind of like how we utilized in the last week's workshops. We learned about ls, list of services, change directories, concatenate, giving the output of the file and stuff. We can put those set of codes, commands on a file and eventually make into a script, a bash script file, and then run it, and it will give you that set of outputs, which basically the gist of it, of bash scripting or scripting in general, is making your life a lot easier and kind of taking out the redundancy of always trying to do like each command one by one, when you can set these set of commands on a file and then run the file.
An example use case for this, at least for coming up in hopefully your guys' lives, would be during competitions. So like this is something you can definitely use during RVB to automate like user permissions, stuff like that, and just get everything out of the way at once. Password policies. If you can run a script at the beginning to secure most of your machine, you'll be much better off. There's obviously other use cases for that, but that's probably going to be one of the more applicable ones.
So this is an example, simple example, super simple package update example of a bash script. And this is basically what it does is the first line is its own command. So it's doing an update on the applications. And then also the following one, and each line has its own like command execution. You can put them all in one line. Not too sure if it'll properly function, but best way to do it, or to keep it kind of nice to the view or to your eyesight, is just kind of have them separate lines. So it'll go from like, I wouldn't say numerical, or from top to bottom. So from APT upgrade, update to APT upgrade, the tag Y is saying that when I execute this command, Linux is going to ask me if I want to move forward with it, yes or no. And putting the tag Y is going to basically auto say like yes to all those prompts that are asking me if I want to like continue with it with the upgrade, yes or no. It's going to just answer yes to all of them, which once again makes the user's life a lot easier. And with updates, you have these like redundants like of files, so you can do APT auto remove, and once again, it's going to ask you and prompt the questions yes or no. So using the tag Y is just going to say yes to all of them. And this is another example of a bash script with firewall. I know we touched on like UFW or uncomplicated firewalls last week. Now instead of doing each command how I like showed you guys to install, check the status, enable or disable, and so on and so forth, you can make a script doing the apt install UFW, and once again it's going to ask you if you want to like continue with it, and the tag Y is going to answer yes to all of them. And then the UFW tag force reset is going to reset the service of UFW. And then eventually, once it resets, going on to the next line, it's going to enable. And then the next two commands are going to be default allow outgoing traffic, and then default deny incoming. So it's going to allow users to do outgoing traffic and then deny any incoming, which can be useful and when you're trying to like protect your services or your machines. But the main point of this slide is to show you that instead of doing it, typing it line by line, you can just do a script file and then just execute it, and it'll do all the work for you. And then if you want to make your life a lot easier, you can kind of just put them together and run this, I want to say massive like script file, but you get the idea. You can start adding to it. You can kind of like for RBB or like any other like red versus blue or like kind of incident response type of events. If you ask a lot of the members, even like myself, we have like the checklist of what to do when you first enter the machines. Like check this, check that, do this. And at first, not knowing script, you kind of like, damn, I have to do this, check the users, check if what services are running, maybe do a scan on my environment. But you can do, you can put all those commands on Linux onto a file and make it into a bash script file. And you can, run it first thing once you log into that machine, and then, focus on other tasks that you can do that may not be doable via automation. So we can see it, also just to comment, literally. The pound signs is for bash, it's so you can put comments, and this is a good kind of practice because let's say you make the script file, and RBB doesn't happen that often because it takes a lot of work to run the event. But let's say you create it and you used it, and then it's on your desktop, and next time RBB comes up, you see it, and let's say you don't have any comments, and you're like, damn, I don't understand what I put in this file, So then this comments do help. I know sometimes we're kind of like, I'll remember it. No, trust me, I've done it. I've looked at it, I'm like, what was I doing? So comments are very helpful, even if you like share it with like your friends or your teammates, help each other. They can understand, what's the intention of doing like the updates, upgrades, and auto removes, and then the UFW as far as reset enabling. And then also you'll start to see as you're working with the bash script files that it starts off with a pound exclamation point bin bash. We'll go more in depth with that on Friday, but you'll start to notice, what is bash scripting and then what is Python. Each has like their niche like templates. And once you start becoming more familiar with one another, you'll start to understand like, oh, this is Python, or oh, this is bash. All right.
Yeah, and like you said, it definitely does take some practice. As you guys get more comfortable using Bash and Python, you'll be able to like look at it and recognize by the syntax which one is which. We're not expecting you guys to come out of this like lecture knowing fully well how to make a script. That's a very big ask. We are just trying to present to you the basics of programming in case you guys don't know it. So the things that you do want to know and kind of try and remember for Friday would be the different types of variables, like what they are, the for loops, the while loops. Oh, and conditions. So like if else statements, because those are the building blocks of programming. Okay. All of that is going to be covered on our study guide. So you guys will be able to review it. It is a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions? So Bash is kind of like I guess like a more direct way to do it because it's straight in your command line. And you can just like do something real quick right there. But Python is more for complicated things. So if you have a lot of, I guess, like parameters that you want to run, Python would be better for that. But Bash is just something that's like real quick, you can do it, get it done. Anyone else? Yes, no, maybe? No, everyone good? Okay. We'll see you guys on Friday. Happy Valentine's Day. Even if you don't have a Valentine, tell someone you love them. Yeah. We love you guys.